From everything we've seen so far, Crimson Desert's boss fights look set to push the game's spectacle as far as it can possibly go. The upcoming open-world adventure features a gauntlet of elaborate cinematic showdowns that feel closer to interactive action scenes than high-stakes battles typical of traditional arenas. Ranging from colossal creatures tearing through the landscape to brutal one-on-one duels, each encounter demands that you lean hard into your combat skills and maneuverability. Framed by dramatic camerawork and interspersed with tightly choreographed cutscenes, Crimson Desert's bosses are designed to deliver unforgettable visual drama. From Hexe's eerie black magic to the physical presence of monsters like Queen Stoneback Crab, these boss fights will be Crimson Desert's most striking highlights. Starting with Hexe, as few moments shown so far capture the game's cinematic ambition, quite like the war against the crow-summoning sorceress. Observing official footage shared back in 2024, the immediate feeling is how gloomy and unwelcoming her domain is. Her black magic swiftly overwhelms, as murmurations surround her dark silhouette, masking sight of where she stands. To counteract her elusiveness, it appears you'll use every trick in the book to overwhelm her and her minion horde alike, from swift dodges and attack combos to freezing arrows and levitational movement. Aggression is key, but not without a keen eye on the battlefield. You see, she teleports frequently, so your time-slowing powers will be more than useful if you lose sight of her. Maintain momentum throughout her multi-stage encounter and you'll arrive at a pure cinematic climax, where the fight moves through a ramshackle outbuilding, the pair exchanging quips and blows as they move upstairs. Eventually, both hurl off the veranda, back to the ground, and poof, she's gone. Something tells us the fight is not over. She'll regroup and return with more determination later on in the game. Now, we should point out that Hexe's official gameplay footage is taken from an out-of-date demo build. As such, the flow of her encounter might change come the game's full release on March 19th. Now, the same goes for other bosses on this rundown, and speaking of which, let's move on. Next, Reed Devil. Now, where Hexe's battle leans into a supernatural atmosphere, your scrap with Reed Devil is more primal and chaotic. And the contrast between these two encounters announces itself with immediate imposition. Hexe's tight, foreboding, crow-cackled entrapment versus Reed Devil's serenity and openness. Here, a wide grassy plain lies between picturesque mountain walls. There's nothing but silence, save for crickets, the breeze, and the faintest rustling. This is an altogether different pre-battle atmosphere, showcasing another way Crimson Desert can raise tension. Eventually, Reed Devil arrives, swift and relentless, with no qualms about fighting unfairly. Reed Devil is a test of your reaction times, first and foremost. He darts through the overgrowth, zigzags towards your frame, and instantly teleports to your unguarded rear. In fact, this angular, omnidirectional attack makes piecing any kind of a pattern together a bewildering endeavor. The Devil of the Reeds Fields shows you exactly how he's earned his terrorizing reputation. Distractions, decoys, reverse attacks, and momentary invisibility. The breadth of Reed Devil's ferality knows no bounds, and he almost seems invincible. But beat him you must. The demo player appears to rely heavily on his shield, ignoring distractions to wait for Reed Devil's long wind-up attacks. In the demo's most effective moments, he's kept close enough to negate his slick movement, with grappling and melee attacks seeming to dish out the most pain. Now, moving on from Reed Devil's speed and savagery, the Stag Lord instead brings spectacle through physical presence. Sitting on an empty throne surrounded by ruins, the Stag Lord doesn't use mystical powers to slay his foes. He's arguably a simpler encounter than Hexe or Reed Devil. But what he lacks in smoke and mirrors, he makes up for in grueling fortitude and heavy strikes. Against Stag Lord, you'll go pound for pound in 3 rounds of fervent dueling, where sword swings, shield bashes, and wrestling throws deal the most punishment. From the 2024 demo footage, Stag Lord appears to showcase a similar fighting style to Crimson Desert's protagonist, Cliff, albeit without a bow and arrow on his back. And it seems your extra firepower is how you'll eventually get the best of him. Wounding him until stunned, he'll show visible weak points that the demo player then hits with a flurry of arrows, before finally climactically dealing the last bloody blow. There's a relative simplicity in this encounter, but it doesn't minimize the cinematic impact. No, Stag Lord brings an intense bout where minimal distractions bring satisfying, crunchy sound design to the fore. Maybe not as challenging, but certainly just as memorable. And after the Stag Lord's brute force presence, the cinematic drama shifts yet again when you come up against Whitehorn. Opening the scene with a bandit scuffle, Whitehorn soon intervenes to chase you down a rocky ravine before trapping you inside a clearing. A towering beast, Whitehorn's power is domineering yet unrefined. It continually slams the ground in rage, swinging its giant paws like battering rams without a care for accuracy. It'll smash where it wants, and that makes this encounter a different proposition to the other bosses already featured on this rundown. Whitehorn is unpredictable, so you must give it space. Now still, being the spirit of the mountain, Whitehorn has control of the environment. Swirling wind disturbs your vision, while raining ice blocks interrupt your flow. If space is key, then so is poise. Whitehorn will quickly close any distance that you gain, but well-timed outmaneuvers bring you to its back, where you can grab hold of its fur and launch a series of brutal sword stabs. One aspect of Crimson Desert that we haven't touched upon yet is its remarkable attention to detail, seen all throughout the vast open world continent of Pywell. During Reed Devil's fight, sword swings slice tops of grass. In Whitehorn's battle, its white fur stains blood red the longer the bout goes on. If clambering onto the blood-stained fur of Whitehorn reminded you of Shadow of the Colossus, then the Queen Stoneback Crab encounter goes into full giant-slaying mode, serving as a reminder of just how insanely cinematic these boss fights are. Beginning as a slumbering mound of rock and treasure, your companion awakes the monster by pickaxing the jewels encrusted into her shell. Once in full swing, if you've played Shadow of the Colossus, you're going to be familiar with this setup. Climbing onto her back, there's a handful of weak points that must be hit. And while the Rocky Queen doesn't attempt to shake you off quite as much as she should, she does jettison some kind of steam akin to a breaching whale. Get caught in this flow and you're launched into the sky. So far in these boss battles, we've not seen much of Cliff's gliding ability, but you'll definitely need to utilize it here. Now the finale sees you swinging around the frame of this hulking beast with your grapple hook before catapulting yourself to her last point of exposure on top of her head. Debris crashes all around the battlefield as she slumps to the ground. Now, taken together, these encounters highlight just how much emphasis Crimson Desert places on turning boss fights into memorable cinematic events. Rather than simply acting as skill checks, bosses like Hexe, Reed Devil, Stag Lord, Whitehorn, and Queen Stoneback Crab look designed to feel like cinematic action set pieces in their own right. The scale of the creatures, the dramatic presentation, and the overwhelming chaos unfolding on screen all points towards battles that are as thrilling to watch as they are to play. If the final game delivers on what's been shown so far, these larger-than-life encounters will easily become some of Crimson Desert's most talked about moments. Also note that the game will have even more bosses as indicated by the mini trailers and demonstrations. So regardless, if you've been waiting a long time for Crimson Desert, the spectacle of these boss battles show that your patience has been worth it.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.